Welcome to the 700 Club, the biggest surge in the history of our southwest border. The number of migrants crossing into the United States illegally hit more than 220,000 in March. That's the highest in 2 decades. And this summer, those numbers are expected to soar even higher.
President Biden is planning to lift a COVID border restriction called Title 42 in May. That move could trigger an unprecedented crisis. It's already generating major pushback from members of the president's own party. CBN's Tara Mergener has the latest.
So far in 2022, nearly 2 million illegal border crossings, and we're only 4 months in. Reports are at least 300,000 have evaded Border Patrol agents as they are busy tending to migrant families, unaccompanied children, and a soaring number of single men. Now, 26 governors are coming together, hoping to bolster security. The effort is part of an expansion of the Arizona Border Strike Force, which has seized thousands of pounds of illicit drugs since it began in 2015.
The majority of the nation's governors are joining together to share information, to bring law enforcement assets, to use intelligence in our fusion centers so that we can stop this flow of dangerous drugs like fentanyl, which is the #1 cause of death here in southern Arizona among young people.
This as record numbers of migrants stream into the U.S. around the clock. With detention facilities overflowing, American taxpayers are footing the bill to drive or fly migrants deeper into the U.S.
What that does is incentivizes people to send their relatives, to call back home and send for more people. And that's the situation we're in now, the worst surge in the history of that southwest border.
Depending on whether President Biden ends Title 42, there's fear numbers that have been climbing since he took office will balloon to levels never seen before in the U.S.
Whenever Title 42 is lifted, there will be a surge.
Since 2020, the feds say it's kept 2 million migrants in Mexico while they await a court date.
35% support Biden rolling back those border controls. 54% oppose it.
While Republicans blast the idea of lifting Title 42.
These guys want to make it worse and release essentially everybody who comes.
Some Democrats concerned about political fallout are pressuring Biden to reconsider.
Not the right way of handling the border situation.
They add he's announced no plan for the new tsunami of illegal entries that would follow. This year alone, agents have caught at least 23 people on the terror watch list.
It's something that Americans don't think, that we should have an open borders policy. And that is the policy of the Biden administration. And all they do is make it more wide open.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott is taking the state's immigration fight to Washington, D.C. by sending busloads of asylum seekers directly there.
Joe Biden has refused to come to the border to see the chaos that he has created by his open border policies. So we're going to take the border to him.
Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Well, I remember a year ago wondering would the illegal immigrant total top 1.6 million based on the surge that was happening at that point in time. And those numbers now seem small when you say in the first 4 months it's 2 million. At what point do you just completely break every social system in America? Because you multiply that 2 million over a full year, multiply by 3. So now it's 6 million additional people, none of whom have jobs. And where are they going to go? How are they going to live? How are they going to survive? And we just seem to have an open border policy, or probably the better way to call it is there's no policy at all. It's either willful ignorance or an inability to get any kind of immigration reform or immigration package through the Congress and through the Senate. And as a result, you just throw up your hands and say, we have an open border. You can't survive as a nation with an open border. And let me underline that one. Nations have to have borders. They have to have recognition who's a citizen, who's not, who's entitled to be in the country, who's not. That's why we have immigration laws. That's why we have these procedures. And to completely ignore it absolutely makes no sense. In other news, the Biden administration wants to reinstate the mask requirements for travelers on planes and other public transportation. Ephraim Graham has more on this story from the CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, the Justice Department is appealing a federal judge's ruling that struck down the mask mandate. The Centers for Disease Control requested the appeal, seeking affirmation it has the legal authority to issue such a rule. If the Biden administration asks for an emergency stay of Monday's ruling, travelers could be forced to begin wearing masks again as soon as it is granted. Major airlines have already dropped their mask requirements, as did many trains, buses, and rideshare companies. A recent Associated Press poll shows 56% of Americans favor wearing masks on planes and other public transportation. Turning overseas now to Israel, where increased violence is fueling concerns of a wider war. Overnight, Palestinian militants in Gaza fired several rockets into southern Israel. Israeli Defense Forces responded with airstrikes on targets in Gaza, including an underground facility that stored chemicals for making rockets. Planes also bombed a Hamas compound after an aircraft missile was launched. No injuries have been reported from the rocket attacks or the retaliatory strikes. All of this coming on top of the week's terror attacks and Palestinian violence against Israelis. In the midst of growing hostilities, Israel has successfully tested a new defense laser system that experts say will enhance border protection. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is on this story.
It's called Magen Or in Hebrew, or light shield.
It marks the first time that a high-power Israeli-made laser system successfully intercepted various targets, constituting a breakthrough on a global scale.
The system is a joint project of the Defense Ministry and Rafael, a defense technology company.
The successful tests complete key milestones in the development of what will be the first operational high-energy laser system in the world. We have introduced cutting-edge technologies to intercept a variety of threats in complex scenarios.
We were able to intercept a variety of threats, such as mortars, rockets, and drones.
The new system will be integrated with the Iron Dome anti-rocket system, which has been effective against rockets fired across the border shared with the Gaza Strip. Last year, during Israel's 11-day war with Gaza, terror groups fired more than 3,400 rockets at Israel. More than 90% heading for populated areas were intercepted by Iron Dome. The interceptors cost up to $100,000 each. The laser system will be more cost-effective. In addition to the ground-based system, the IDF is also developing a platform-mounted laser system to defend troops in the field, and an aerial laser system to intercept threats from the air and to defend large areas on the ground.
The success of the high-power lasers live-fire test is a significant accomplishment for the security of the people of Israel.
Brigadier General Yaniv Rotem says the tests are just the beginning of their plan to position multiple laser transmitters along Israel's borders during the next decade. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Now to the war in Eastern Europe. President Biden is expected to announce another $2.6 billion in military aid to Ukraine today. This comes as Russia is stepping up its massive assault on the east. And Vladimir Putin is ordering his troops not to storm the last pocket of resistance in the strategic port city of Mariupol. Russian troops have besieged the southeastern city for weeks and largely pulverized it. Ukrainian forces stubbornly holding out in the face of overwhelming odds. The remaining defenders are holed up in a sprawling steel plant. Putin said he would not risk sending troops into the warren of tunnels under the giant plant. Instead, he prefers to isolate the holdouts. Meanwhile, the UN says more than 5 million refugees have fled Ukraine since the invasion began in February. Imagine spending 42 nights in a basement hiding from enemy troops. That's what Anya and her children endured after the Russians took over their city. Now, after nearly 6 weeks in hiding, they have finally made their escape with the assistance of some workers from CBN's Orphans Promise. Our Wendy Griffith reports now from Lviv, Ukraine.
On this Wednesday night in Lviv, Anya and her 11 foster children are finally able to laugh again. After escaping Verdansk, a city west of devastated Mariupol. Verdansk was seized by Russian forces just 4 days into the war, and the family was forced to stay in a bunker below their house for 42 days.
It was hard to live there, and it was dangerous. But every day when we woke up, we were thankful to God that we are still alive and we are still able to worship Him.
Anya says whenever they needed anything or were afraid, they would pray.
We were reading Bible, we were worship, we were fasting, and that's why we had this peace with God.
The foster children, who were mostly teenagers and who had never been through war, said they weren't afraid.
I didn't worry. I was in peace and I was in the safe place, and I know that everything will be fine. God with us and He will gonna protect us. We were praying to God, and I felt this peace in my heart, and we all became so united and as one family, and that's why I didn't feel that fear.
Thanks to some brave drivers from Orphans Promise, Anya and her children were able to escape to Lviv, where OP turned some offices into shelters.
We help to support people who are still be in other centers, to give them food, medicine, to give them psychology support. And the most important part of our job is just gospel.
The gospel.
To share good news, because all people are open to accept Jesus.
The family is now awaiting visas to go to Switzerland, where they plan to wait out the war.
I'm excited, but I'm also a little bit sad about that. I need to leave my own country, my family, my city. About the war, I'm not happy, but the possibility that I can go to different countries, I'm happy because it was my dream.
Switzerland, here we come.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Lviv, Ukraine.
2 days in hiding. What a joy to see the smiles on their faces, thanks to the work of Operation Blessing and Orphans Promise. Gordon?
Yes, it is. And it's thanks to you. If you've given to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund, you're part of that relief effort, helping that wonderful family. If you haven't given, I encourage you to do so right now. All you have to do is call us, 1-800-700-7000. Say, I want to give to the Disaster Relief Fund. You can also write to us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. You can text OB Crisis to 71777, or you can go to cbn.com. Either way, do it now. Be a part of helping those in need. 1-800-700-7000.